Joining me this morning, Miska Rynsburger, the principal of the Southside Christian School in Holland. Miska, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much for having me this morning, Steve.
Glad to be here. You know, if I was in your school, we'd be best friends, too. Make no mistake.
You know what? I got to tell you, once I was given this job, that was not my first time in a principal's office either.
Well, there you go. See, colorful characters make a more interesting educational experience, don't they?
You know, I should have brought that up in the interview. That's a good point.
Yeah, colorful characters. You know,
it's a nice place to be in a principal's office.
Well, you know, depending on the circumstances, this is true. But you sound like you have a great disposition, and I'm really glad to have you here. Obviously, the Holland Christian Elementary School is a smaller school than some, but you're doing some things there that obviously are cutting edge. Tell us about this new STEM program and how it resulted in you getting invited to the White House.
So Holland Christian has sort of this forward thinking also, as you mentioned earlier, posture with teachers, with educators, really encouraging teachers to take a risk, to pursue creative ideas, innovative thought in the classroom, always as just a constant pursuit of excellence for our students. And in the spring, I was reading about MAKE in education, and then talked with our gifted and talented teacher and an aide from our building, and we thought through how can we just introduce MAKE in our school rather than a full-on change and a jump in with 2 feet commitment. We decided to do 1 week of MAKE for our students. So we implemented this program, I guess you'd call it, called Makers Week, and it went really well. The students, and I can get into that if you want.
Well, you know, here's the thing. Yeah, I'd like that. I have a daughter who's 10. And,
you do?
Yeah,
awesome.
So these projects, you know, that get kids, and she's a pretty decent student, but still, you want to find things that get kids' attention and hold their attention. Not just get their attention, but hold their attention. That's probably one of your bigger challenges today because the world moves so fast today, whether it's smartphones or the world at large and everything else. To attract their attention and get their attention on math and science and engineering and so forth, that's quite a trick.
So, you know what? We could hire you. This is exactly the right kind of, you want to acknowledge that kids have this incredible capacity for creativity, but also for, they're intense learners. So either they're going to be intense about what you provide their learning, or they're going to be intense about, you know, their phone, their video games, or misbehavior. They go full bore. And if we can engage them in the learning process, then they are intensely involved and engaged in learning. And knowledge is really a consequence of those kinds of experiences. So when we have them engaged in projects, they begin making memories. And projects interconnect content area. Projects blur the artificial boundaries between subject areas. So you're really engaging in high-quality learning when you're creating a project or you're watching your thought and your ideas come to fruition with your own hands.
Well, sure, what you find out is you get cross-discipline education, and what I mean by that is my daughter, who is really good at math, says, well, I don't like science. I said, you know, they're very close. We just had this conversation last week. I said, these two things they're like brothers or sisters or whatever you want to talk. We're on the line this morning with Miska Rynsburger, the principal of Southside Christian School in Holland, recently invited to the White House to talk about some of her cutting-edge ideas to get kids involved. And the other thing, and I wonder how often this happens to you, Miska, you have a student who you don't know. You know, they're a decent student, but they're kind of quiet. They're not really connected. You have no idea what's going on in their home life. You don't really know what's happening. But then something like this comes along, and you see this kid just blossom, boys, girls, and you watch it happen, and that's got to be a rewarding experience, and I'm sure it happens to you.
You know what? And MAKE in education provides that electricity for students who you're describing, who might otherwise be kind of a quiet wallflower. Workbooks are not as engaging as we might like them to be. You and I maybe were raised in a classroom with workbooks and pencils and straight rows and needed to be quiet and seated.
But what do you remember? You remember dissecting the frog because your hands were on it. I mean, that's the way. That's what I remember from science class when I was young. Yeah, the books are great, but actually getting your hands on and getting involved—that's where the real light bulbs go off, I think.
Yes, and so brain research will tell you that if you can engage a student's emotions, now you've created a memory that's going to last a lifetime. So you're right. When we think back to our school days, it was not about page 63 of our workbook. Rather, it was about the project that we were emotionally vested in.
Exactly.
That creates a memory, and now we've got some great learning. So that's what Making Education really is all about, is engaging kids with peers. And these are real-life skills that these students need to learn how to fail, how to develop grit, how to think of other iterations on their project. These are skills that we're going to use in the workplace in their future, that we really owe it to them to expose them to that type of learning now.
And I agree with you. And if you can set the hook when they're younger in elementary school, you've potentially created a lifelong learner, somebody that's always going to be curious and want to know more. Miska, it's been a great pleasure. Miska Rynsburger, principal of the Southside Christian School in Holland on the lake shore over there. I've only got 15 seconds here. How was the White House?
Oh, it was awesome. It was a little bit mind-blowing. Wonderful people, great staff, very welcoming, interested, and incredibly supportive.
Miska Rynsburger, hats off to you. The world needs more people, more educators like you. Have a great weekend.
Thank you very much, Steve.